What's something you witnessed, scary or otherwise, that you still can't explain to this day? Deleted, responded. I never met my father-in-law because he passed away when my wife was only 10. She says he used to play Brown-Eyed Girl and dance in the kitchen with her when she was little. The song means a lot to her and her mom. When my first daughter was born, that was the song that came on the radio the first time my mother-in-law met the baby. For our second daughter, it played on the hospital speakers right after she was born. Pretty cool. /the_owl_syndicate responded. This just happened recently. I was driving home around dusk. Headlights were on but there was still some daylight, enough to see. On the shoulder of the highway, 2 kids were walking. There were no other cars, so Elle moved over a bit just to be safe. As I passed them, one of them turned her head to look at me. I watched them, a bit creeped out by 2 kids walking along an empty highway. As I passed them, I glanced at my side view mirror to keep an eye on them. And they were gone. A quick glance over my shoulder showed an empty highway. In a movie, I would have stopped to look. In real life I hit the gas and didn't look back again. /deleted responded. This one isn't huge but it is real and my husband and I think about it a lot. One time I was at urgent care to get an injury checked out. My husband was with me as he usually is for anything medical. The waiting room when you walk in through the door has a long counter at the front, chairs surrounding a TV to the right, and on the left there a little divot in the wall where more chairs rest in front of a bathroom door. It's a single-person bathroom with no windows and only one door. We were sitting in some of the chairs close to the bathroom door. It was kinda in its own micro hallway and the only exit from walking out of the bathroom was to walk past my husband and I. After sitting there for a while, a man walks in with his wife through the front door of the waiting room. They don't go to the check-in counter, but rather talk right in front of the door for about 30 seconds, maybe a minute. I didn't hear what they were talking about. The woman nods and leaves through the front door and the man pauses to look around the room once he's alone. I assumed she was dropping him off to get checked out. His eyes meet the door to the bathroom and he walks straight there instead of checking in, going inside and locking the door. My husband and I continue to wait there. 5 minutes pass, 10, 15, 20. We waited there for a long time and he never came out. However, I think we've all had times where we spent a good hour in a bathroom, so we just assumed maybe he had a stomach bug. Later a woman from the waiting room goes up to the bathroom door to use it after the man had been in there for about 30 minutes. She opens the door no problems. The lock suddenly wasn't engaged. And she goes in to use the restroom, coming out a few minutes later and going back to her seat. My husband and I looked at each other confused. He went to look in the bathroom and the man wasn't there. There was no other windows or doors to leave out of. The man was just gone, not a trace. /Hybranwar responded. When I was 17, my parents finally let me ride my motorcycle to school. In my country, you can get your driver's license as soon as you have your ID card. One day, on my way home, I made a classic dumb teenager move. A train was coming, and I tried to beat it across the tracks. My tire slipped, I panicked, and the train started blasting the horn. Out of nowhere, this old man appears and literally lifts me and my bike off the tracks just as the train barrels past. It happened so fast, I could barely process it. My knees were shaking like crazy. I turned to thank him, and he was gone. No trace of him anywhere, even though it was a wide open area with no place to hide. Did he sprint away? Seems like he evaporated to thin air, because it literally half a second passed since he lifted me to safety. Almost 14 years passed. Even writing this now gives me goosebumps. /pretend this is ironic responded. I've got a couple. When I was little I was playing by the dumpster at my apartment complex and a dog ran up and I swore with all that was within me this dog said hi, my name, so I took this stray dog home immediately exclaiming that I was Dr. Dolittle. The very next morning our complex was full of cops because a little girl had been abducted the night before from the playground dumpster area and was missing. They found I think her bike and shoes in that same dumpster. The second was on a Halloween. I was driving to go to the movies on speakerphone with my friend and a massive car accident happened all around me. A drunk driver did a head-on collision and tried to flee the scene. I felt the other cars hit my car, but I had covered my face screaming. Well, my car didn't have a scratch, not a dent. My car was covered in broken glass, it even came in through the windows. I was just sitting there boxed in by 4 cars in a fatality and others severely injured accident with EMS looking at me like it was a miracle. But I had been so bounced around I couldn't figure out how nothing hit my car. My neck and chest were slightly red from the seat belt. I sat there for hours in the scene because the other cars were totaled and there had been an ejection. But my CD player that had never worked started working all of a sudden, playing in loop Go Your Own Way by Fleetwood Mac. I ended up having to get a new radio as it would never play anything other than that song. I still have the CD. U/vegetable fix 4702 responded. I can't explain it, but I do have a good guess. November 17th, 2023 at approximately 5:20 a.m. to 5:36 a.m. I stepped out onto the front porch. It was very dark. I really like to see the stars, it's pretty. I see a triangle silently pass over the house. It was light up with circular lights on two edges. As it passed over the house, it was bigger and bigger, almost the size of half the house. I was fascinated and then scared, so I went back in. There is an Air Force base not more than 60 miles away. The silence was scary. U/Lorketh in the Merketh responded. My little brother was a douchebag, and he'd frequently take my car without my permission or putting gas into it while denying up and down that he did so. The kicker is he was almost always smoking or drinking, so he could have really put me at risk. Dumbass would put the parking brake on when he parked despite the area L park being near flat, so I always knew when he took it. No one else did this. About 5 years ago, I woke up from a vivid dream of being in agony in my bed. I could feel my consciousness dying bit by bit, a pressure in my head building as it all slipped away. It dragged on for many hours, and when I awoke, I knew something was terribly wrong. I found out hours later that he was brain dead after having a heart attack caused by a cerebral hematoma. Somehow, I had dreamed his final, conscious, moments on this earth. When his shell was allowed to die several days later, I went to my car to go out. I had taken it out the day before, yet when I got in the car, the parking brake was on. I saw a vision of him pointing at me and laughing in that obnoxious way the boy from The Simpsons does. Nelson maybe? Ha ha, before disappearing. There is no chance I put the parking brake on, and no one else in my family does this. It may not be scary, but it sure as shit isn't something I can explain. U/Alaraja responded. I was driving through Casper, Wyoming 3 weeks ago. I needed to meet a friend on my way through for a minute, and we decided to meet near Menards in the south end of town. As I am driving up, I swear to everything that on the right side of the road I witness a full tree render from the ground up out of nowhere, just like in a video game, right in front of me. It's wintertime, so no leaves or anything like that, but I had to stop the truck and gather myself because it was so shocking. Strangest thing I have experienced in a long time. U/E377 Jr. responded. As a kid, around 11 years old, I went on a family trip to El Salvador to visit family after the Civil War was over and it was safe to visit. One of the first stops we did was to visit my maternal grandmother's grave. My mother hadn't been to the site in over 10 years, so a group of 6 of us were scanning the rows of above-ground graves looking for her resting place. Think of the cemetery you see in movies like Interview with a Vampire. While we are scanning for the grave, I see a woman walking alongside us wearing an interesting black and white polka dot dress. I look away for a couple of seconds and she is gone. I walk towards the area she was at and lo and behold I recognize the name on the grave. It was my grandmother's resting place. I figured it's a crazy coincidence until I see a picture on the headstone and realize the lady was my dead grandmother. The polka dot dress was the one she was buried in. U/Camille_toe responded. I was in my 20s and my then boyfriend and I were at his parents' house. Just the two of us and the family dog. He was opening mail in the dining room and I was rinsing a glass in the kitchen, within sight of him about 15 feet away. We were talking and suddenly came loud footsteps overhead. Stomp, 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 stomp. He froze and I looked at him like WTF. But the look on his face was not confusion or panic, oh no. It was oh shit, now I have to tell her the house is haunted. So then he let me in on the family secret. Some entity, it had a strong masculine energy to me, lived in their attic. BF's mom had tried nailing the crawl space door shut, placing typewriters in front of it, etc. Always got reopened. And the dog would refuse to go upstairs unless carried directly into one of the bedrooms. U/Woosthatwovian responded. Worked at a tanning salon when I was a teen. It was in the basement of an old 70s apartment building. Since the very first day I worked there, weird stuff would occasionally happen. Faucets in the bathroom starting on their own, customers would say we knocked on their door or shouted their names while they tanned. Some customers were long-time clients and had all sorts of stories about it being haunted. Like most salons, we had cameras that monitored the hallways, front, and the computer system told me which beds were in use, clean, dirty. So I'm alone one day, and I walk to clean a bed in the back hallway. It's a long hallway with rooms on each side that ended with a door to the laundry room. As I walked into room 6, right next to the laundry room, I took note that the laundry was done. The laundry room door was open with the light on and I could see here the dryer stopped. Now I'm in the room cleaning the bed when suddenly I hear a door slam so loudly. I jump, thinking it's a Tanner or something even though the door definitely didn't buzz. No, it's the laundry room door. It's closed and the light is off. But here's the thing. You cannot, in absolutely no way, slam that door. The floor in the laundry room is all warped by the door and it drags and sticks to the ground. You have to pull it really hard to get it to close. I stood there for about 5 minutes trying with all my might to slam that door and recreate what just happened. Not happening. That's when I totally freaked out and ran to the front and refused to go back there again all night. U/Deddy Ruxpin responded. A building I used to work in was haunted. I could explain the giggling girls in the basement ladies' room as plumbing noises, although I can't explain why you could clearly hear them from outside, almost being able to make out what they were whispering and giggling about, and the noise stopped and went away the moment you opened the bathroom door. Once you opened the door the noise would be gone until some other evening. What I never came up with an explanation for was the menacing creepy old guy that would stand behind my car blocking me from backing out of the parking space. He only ever appeared in the rear view mirror. If I turned around to look at him he would be gone. I originally assumed it was a reflection of the parking lot lights, but it didn't matter where in the lot I parked, he would still show up. It got so bad I stopped looking in my mirror before backing up when I was leaving late at night. U/NPF80 responded. Had some experiences when I was a kid living at my parents' house. Was using the computer late at night in the office room, which had portraits of each family member on the wall behind me. I heard a crash, turn around to see my portrait had fallen. It was the type that had a string on the back so the frame was hanging on a nail stuck to the wall. The nail was still intact, so I didn't know how the portrait would have suddenly fallen. And of course of all portraits to fall in that way it had to be mine. Laying in bed I would sometimes hear breathing near me. I thought I was hearing my own breathing so would stop momentarily, and still hear the same breathing. This led to a habit of sleeping with a radio TV on to drown out the sound. When my family moved out of that house I never experienced anything similar, so whatever it was I guess it decided to stay, winky face. U/U David 2235 responded. I have been waiting to tell this somewhere. Last fall I was in Toronto and walking on College Street to get to this video arcade place. Turns out they were not open yet, so we kept walking to go to another arcade I found on Google Maps that was open but stayed on this particular street. On the way we passed by this older woman, must have been in her 80s. She stood out because she looked borderline homeless, was a smaller woman and had one pant leg slightly up on her leg and these little light red sandal shoes and a scarf loosely draped around her head neck. No bag, no belongings with her. We continued walking down the street about 10 minutes, and the same looking woman walked past us in the same direction as the first one, wearing the exact same thing. The shoes and the pant leg stood out immediately. At first I thought it was the same woman but then realized that would be impossible because 1. Her age and 2. She would have had to run across the street and down and then cross it again to come back towards us. Then I thought maybe it's a twin but her pant leg and shoes and scarf that all stood out to me was the exact same. The pant leg was the main stick out for me. So I still have no idea what that was, a glitch in the matrix, an angel. I try not to think about it because I can't logically wrap my head around what that was but I will always remember it. U/Eastern_Shawman responded. I was riding through the town I lived in at the time, around 8 p.m. It was the summer so still dark enough to see the surroundings. I saw a bright green flash that engulfed everything around accompanied by a very loud boom and it felt like my truck was T-boned on the driver's side. The truck physically rocked like it got hit. It was over in a second, no physical damage to my truck or anything in the town. The weirdest part was there was a handful of people walking on the sidewalk off my passenger side that I was passing by as this happened and not one person reacted. Nothing happened, they never even looked my way. Maybe 50 yards down the street on the opposite side there was a few more people walking towards my direction and they appeared to have witnessed nothing either. The whole thing was extremely strange. U/insert coins to begin responded. My dad and I were home and he was in his office with the radio loud and I was in the living room. My dad can't hear very well. We both heard the kitchen door open with a pop, squeaking kind of sound, work boots stomping on the kitchen floor and the sound of both the work boots being taken off, which is what we did and a very common noise. We both heard it and figured it was my little brother coming home. Except the dogs hadn't barked and the driveway alarms didn't go off. I called my little brother, and he was 45 minutes away. My dad and I searched outside and the entire house. It was just US. I'm not religious. But something isn't right about that house. And a decade plus later, my little brother still swears it wasn't him. He has stories about seeing shadow people for years and something following him on and in his car. My eyes watered and I got goosebumps typing this all these years later. U/1980 PZX responded. A few years back I woke up in the middle of the night a few different times and it felt like something was walking on my bed, at the foot of the bed. My wife was sleeping next to me, so it wasn't her. The odd thing is I mentioned it to my wife a few weeks after it happened and she turned white as a ghost and said she had experienced the exact same thing a few times but didn't want to mention it to me because she thought I would think she was crazy. We still can't explain it. It hasn't happened in a really long time but it was an unnerving experience. U/glum_umpire_6992 responded. My parents tell this story about me as a child that scared them. Apparently, I woke up very early one morning from a nightmare, crying and screaming. When they came to comfort me and ask me what was wrong, I kept telling them about a plane crash and that everyone is burning and falling. They put me back to sleep and went back to bed themselves, but when they did get up and put the news on the 9th of November had happened and was all over the TV. They just looked at each other and freaked out because it was exactly what I had dreamt the night before. I, of course, don't remember anything. I was 4 years old when 9/11 happened and I've never had anything like it happen to me since. Thank you for watching. If you like this video you might enjoy the rest of my content. Check it out.